The night hummed with the heartbeat of Neo Atlanta, a city rebuilt from memory and steel. Neon veins pulsed along the old Sweet Auburn corridor, where street vendors sold food that smelled like home, even in the shadow of alien towers. Hovercrafts glided above like restless ghosts, and somewhere deep within the electric rhythm of it all, Malik Carter walked with purpose, his head bent slightly beneath the drizzle of ionized rain. He was 30 years old, broad-shouldered, dark-skinned, with a quiet gravity that made people listen before they spoke. Once a Space Corps tactical engineer, now he ran a small robotics workshop for Southridge youth, teaching them to build drones and dream beyond the limits people had set for them centuries ago. His grandmother used to say, "You can't save the world if you don't teach it first." That stuck. As he crossed Freedom Square, a massive display flickered above, a live feed of an alien diplomatic procession. The Thalari, crystalline beings whose skin shimmered like broken glass catching dawn, had come to renew trade agreements. Most humans watched with suspicion. Their history with aliens had always been uneasy, full of treaties signed in daylight and betrayals whispered by night. Malik didn't share the fear. He'd seen real monsters, and they weren't the ones with glass for skin. A sudden tremor shook the plaza. The ground quivered beneath his boots. Then came the unmistakable crack of plasma discharge. Screams tore through the air as a convoy of armored skimmers exploded into fragments of molten light. Security drones whirred overhead, scanning, shooting, panicking. Malik dropped behind a stall, instincts from the war taking over before thought could catch up. Then he saw her. A Thalari teen, barely half his height, crouched beside a shattered fountain, her translucent skin fractured by light and fear. Her sobs emitted soft chimes, each tear scattering tiny rays of blue across the wet pavement. She looked lost, not in space but in terror. "Hey!" Malik shouted, running toward her as a bolt of plasma hissed past his shoulder, scorching the air. The girl flinched, curling tighter. Without thinking, he pulled the prototype shield module from his pack, a relic from his military days, worn and half-functional, and activated it. The barrier flared into being, a shimmering dome of orange energy that hummed against the onslaught. "Stay down," he commanded. Another volley hit. The air shook, the smell of ozone burned his throat. He gritted his teeth, crouching over her as laser fire ricocheted around them. The shield flickered, then steadied. Beneath it, the girl trembled, hands clasped near her chest, whispering words in a language of glass and melody. Malik didn't understand, but he recognized the sound of fear. The firefight stretched seconds into eternities. When the shooting finally subsided, silence rolled in heavy as grief. Malik looked around. The plaza was wrecked. Smoke, fire, and confusion everywhere. The security drones hovered uncertainly, awaiting new commands. The Thalari convoy was gone. The girl stared up at him, eyes wide and luminous. "Why?" she asked, her accent fractured, voice soft as a broken bell. He swallowed. "Because you needed help." She blinked, confused. "Humans don't help Thalari." "Guess I didn't get that memo," Malik said. Somewhere behind the smoke, sirens wailed. A dozen cameras zoomed in from the hovering news spheres above. Already voices were shouting, some calling him a hero, others calling him a traitor. Malik felt the weight of all those gazes pressing down. He helped the girl to her feet. "Come on," he said. "We need to move before someone decides you're the problem." She nodded, still trembling, her skin dimming to a softer blue. He led her through the chaos, away from the plaza toward the narrow back streets of Southridge, where neon light met gospel echoes and the smell of fried catfish mixed with ozone from passing drones. As they disappeared into the maze of alleys, Malik glanced once over his shoulder, realizing the moment he'd stepped between her and that gunfire, he hadn't just saved a life. He'd drawn a line between what humanity feared and what it could become. And before we go any deeper into Malik's impossible choice, make sure to subscribe for more powerful human stories that prove one thing above all: compassion always finds a way. Malik didn't stop running until the plaza's chaos was swallowed by the labyrinth of Southridge's narrow streets. The neon glow here was dimmer, tinted with the amber of flickering signage, and the pulse of old gospel rhythms leaking from corner shops. The Thalari girl stumbled beside him, her crystalline feet clicking softly on the damp pavement. "Keep up," he said, slowing his stride when he noticed her breath hitching, though he wasn't sure if her species even breathed the same way humans did. Her chest rose and fell with shimmering pulses of light that dimmed every few seconds. When they reached the shadow of an abandoned rail station, Malik dropped to one knee and finally let the shield deactivate. The orange glow faded, leaving them in the still air of rain and static. His arm ached from the recoil of each deflected blast, and his ears rang from the concussive echoes still bouncing through his memory. The girl's eyes reflected the distant skyline, like shards of sapphire absorbing light. She hugged her knees and whispered something in her language, a series of soft bell-like tones. Malik leaned closer. "I can't understand you," he said quietly. Her gaze flickered up to meet his. "You protect me." "Yeah," he replied, catching his breath. "That's what people do when someone's in danger." Her crystalline brows furrowed. "Not people. You." Malik almost smiled. "Guess I'm a little different." Rain began to fall again, fine mist shimmering as it met the faint bioluminescent glow radiating from her skin. Malik pulled his jacket over her shoulders instinctively, even though it looked awkward on her thinner frame. She hesitated before touching the fabric, almost as if she expected it to vanish. He leaned back against the cold steel of the wall, mind racing. He didn't even know her name, didn't know who had attacked the convoy or why. The only thing he knew was that the city's news drones had likely broadcast the entire thing, and his face, his decision, was now public property. "Do you have a family here?" he asked. She shook her head. "Clan, in orbit." "All right," Malik muttered. "We'll figure this out, but for now we stay low." The wind carried the distant hum of sirens. Every instinct told him to run farther, to disappear before the Bureau's drones triangulated his location. But he couldn't leave her. Not after what he'd seen in her eyes. That kind of fear didn't come from being alien. It came from being alone. The girl shivered. A faint crack ran across her forearm, glowing faintly blue. Malik frowned. "You're hurt." She looked down, startled. "Surface fracture." "No pain," he exhaled. "Still, we need to fix that." She watched him curiously as he rummaged through his pack, pulling out a roll of conductive film and a patch of nano-weave mesh. "Hold still." He wrapped it carefully around the glowing fissure. As he did, she studied him with an intensity that felt ancient, as though she was trying to read his thoughts through the lines of his face. "You fight before," she said softly. "Yeah, too many times." "Why save enemy?" Malik's hands paused. "You're not my enemy." Her eyes brightened faintly, like a sunrise behind glass. "Then who is?" He didn't answer right away. The truth was tangled, the system, the fear, the endless cycle of distrust. Instead, he looked out toward the skyline, where the storm clouds flickered with the echo of distant fires. "Anyone who forgets what mercy looks like." The girl tilted her head, uncertain, then reached out and touched the edge of his jacket sleeve. "My name, Lura'ai." "Lura'ai," he repeated, the syllables strange but melodic on his tongue. "I'm Malik." Her faint smile reflected the city's light. "Malik means king, yes?" "Something like that," he said, chuckling under his breath. For the first time since the gunfire, the tension in his chest loosened, but deep inside, he felt the quiet weight of what he'd done, not the danger, but the meaning. In shielding her, he hadn't just protected a stranger. He had stepped into something larger than himself, something that would not let him walk away. The wind shifted, carrying the faint buzz of patrol drones. Malik's jaw tightened. The world outside this station hadn't stopped moving, and somewhere out there the city was already deciding what his mercy was worth. By morning, Neo Atlanta didn't remember the screams. It replayed them. Every major holofeed ran the same footage. Malik Carter, crouched beneath an orange shimmer, shielding a Thalari girl while plasma fire tore through Freedom Square. The captions varied from admiration to accusation. Human engineer saves alien teen. Possible rebel sympathizer interferes with security operation. The city's truth had always depended on who controlled the broadcast. Malik watched the looping feed from the cracked screen of an old transmitter in his workshop. The air smelled of solder, ozone, and last night's coffee gone cold. Lura-A sat quietly on a stool, her crystalline fingers tracing the edge of a dismantled drone, as if studying its shape could calm her. Outside, the neighborhood buzzed with gossip. He could almost feel their eyes through the metal shutters. He rubbed his forehead, exhaustion pressing down like weight training for the soul. "They're making me into something I'm not," he muttered. Amara's voice crackled from the transmitter. "That's what they do, baby brother. The story isn't about what happened, it's about what sells." Her tone carried that mix of anger and love he'd grown up with. She was older, sharper, a journalist who'd fought every system built to silence voices like theirs. "They're saying I'm a traitor. They said our great-grandfather was a troublemaker for sitting at the wrong counter," she replied. "Some things don't change. They just get digital." Malik exhaled, glancing toward Lura-A. "I couldn't leave her there, Amara. She was just a kid." "I know, that's why I'm proud of you, but listen, the Bureau's going to call." "You can't ignore them." "Let them call," he said, voice low. "I've got work to do." The line went silent for a beat, then Amara sighed. "Just be careful. Neo Atlanta loves a hero until it needs a villain." When the signal cut, the workshop felt emptier. Malik stared at his hands, the same hands that once built weapons, now shaking from the echo of what those weapons could do. Lura-A tilted her head. "They hate you now." He hesitated. "Some of them. Some just don't know what to think." She studied him, light rippling across her skin, in patterns he was beginning to understand as emotion. "You help me. That is good. How can that be wrong?" Malik gave a tired laugh. "Because people fear what they don't understand." "Always have." Lura-A frowned, confusion shimmering in blue hues. "Your people fight each other too?" "Every day," he said quietly. "Different reasons. Same pain." Rain began to patter against the skylight, soft and rhythmic. The sound grounded him. He'd always believed the world could be repaired, line by line, circuit by circuit, but people didn't follow schematics. They burned. They doubted. They forgot. A knock echoed at the metal door. Malik's shoulders tensed. He gestured for Lura-A to stay silent, then opened it slightly. On the other side stood Jamal, one of his students, maybe 16, hoodie soaked from the rain. "Mr. Carter, they talking about you all over the feeds," the boy whispered. "Some say you broke the law." "Did I?" Malik asked. Jamal shrugged. "Don't look like it to me. You saved somebody." His gaze darted past Malik, curiosity sparking when he saw Lura-A. "That her?" Malik nodded. "Yeah, she's under my protection." Jamal grinned, a spark of pride flashing through his nervousness. "Then you're doing what we're supposed to do, right? Protect folks." For a moment, Malik's chest warmed. The boy's words felt like a reminder of something ancient, a rhythm older than any war or treaty. When Jamal left, Malik turned back toward Lura-A. She was watching the rain streak across the glass, each droplet refracting in her skin like miniature galaxies. "Malik," she said softly, "will they come for us?" He didn't answer. Somewhere beyond the rain, a siren wailed, distant but closing in. Malik looked at his shield unit lying on the workbench, its power core flickering faintly. He knew the city wouldn't forgive what it didn't understand. He tightened the strap on his wrist and whispered to himself, "Let them come. We're not running." The next night arrived heavy with mist and silence, wrapping South Ridge in a haze that smelled of metal and burnt ozone. Malik sat on the roof of his workshop. The city spread beneath him like a wounded constellation. The hollow screens across the skyline still looped images of the attack, but now a new headline pulsed above them. "Alien Retaliation Fleet Detected Near Orbit." He didn't need to read between the lines. The Bureau would blame the Thalari and anyone tied to them. That meant him. Downstairs, Lura-A sat cross-legged on the workshop floor, humming softly. a haunting melody of glass and wind. Malik felt the vibration through the metal beams beneath him. He'd come to recognize her songs as language, stories, memories, prayer. That night, her music carried both sorrow and defiance. He climbed back inside, brushing mist from his shoulders. "You haven't slept," he said. She looked up, her glow dim but steady. "Thalari do not sleep when the clan comes." Malik frowned. "The clan," she nodded. "They come to honor the bond." Before he could ask what that meant, a soft tremor rolled through the air, low and resonant, like thunder beneath the ground. The lights flickered, and suddenly the workshop was filled with shifting reflections, beams of refracted color swirling in rhythmic patterns. The walls pulsed with light, forming shapes that resembled figures. Malik's instincts flared, but Lura-A rose calmly. "They found us," she whispered. The air shimmered, and from the pattern of light emerged tall, elegant beings whose crystalline bodies caught the dim light and scattered it into prisms. They were Thalari, 6 of them, their forms like walking symphonies of color. The eldest among them stepped forward, skin radiant with deep amber tones, eyes gleaming like molten glass. "Who stands for this child?" the figure asked, voice layered like a cord. Lura-A stepped beside Malik and placed a trembling hand on his arm. "He does." The elder's gaze shifted to him. "You shielded one of our young beneath the fire of war. No Thalari forgets such a deed. You have bound yourself to our clan through courage and grace." Malik straightened, unsure whether to bow or speak. "I did what anyone should have done," he said quietly. "She was in danger." The elder tilted his head, light rippling across his crystalline surface. "Few among your kind act on compassion without profit. You have honored both our worlds. By the rising of dawn, the clan of Dawn shall swear loyalty to Malik Carter of Earth." Lura-A's glow brightened with something like pride. Malik, however, felt the cold rush of uncertainty. "I don't want anyone swearing anything to me," he said. "That's not what this was about." The elder's tone softened, resonating like a cello string. "You cannot unmake a vow freely given. A bond of light is truth itself." The Thalari moved in slow unison, circling Malik and Lura-A. Their voices intertwined, creating a hum so deep it vibrated through the floor, through his chest, through the very air. For a moment, the city's distant noise disappeared, replaced by that sacred harmony. He felt something stir inside him, not fear, but a strange warmth that carried the weight of generations. Images flashed through his mind, his grandmother's church choir swaying under stained glass, the rhythm of drums at family reunions, voices raised in shared purpose. This vow, alien as it was, carried the same pulse. When the chanting ceased, the elder raised a hand. "By sunrise we will stand by you. Your fate is joined with ours." Malik met his gaze. "That's going to make a lot of people nervous." The elder's light flickered in something like a smile. "Let them tremble. Dawn does not ask permission to rise." As the Thalari's forms dissolved back into light, Malik turned to Lura-A, who looked up at him with a mix of gratitude and gravity. The air still hummed faintly from their vow. "What happens now?" he asked. Lura-A's answer came like a whisper. "Now the dawn begins." The summons came at dawn. A silver drone hovered outside Malik's workshop window, projecting a seal of the Bureau of Interplanetary Harmony. The message was brief. "Malik Carter, report to Central Tower immediately for debriefing. Non-compliance will result in suspension of civic rights." There was no threat in the tone, yet Malik could hear the iron behind the words. He looked over at Lura-A, still asleep on the floor under a thermal blanket. Her glow had dimmed during the night, the rhythm of her breathing steady and calm. For a fleeting moment, Malik wished he could stay, keep the world outside and let her dream of safety a little longer. But peace never stayed when bureaucracy called. He left a note on the workbench. "Stay inside. Don't answer anyone but Amara." Then he pulled on his jacket, clipped the broken shield to his belt and stepped into the humid morning. Central Tower loomed over the city like judgment carved in steel. The plaza outside buzzed with reporters and drones. When Malik approached, the crowd parted, whispers chasing him. That's him! The alien's protector. Hero or traitor? The words cut differently this time. Inside, the temperature dropped. Security bots scanned him head to toe before ushering him through long, sterile corridors that smelled faintly of ozone and bureaucracy. A woman waited at the end, Agent Cassandra Vance, bureau investigator, tall, composed, her dark brown skin reflecting the cold light of the chamber. Her expression carried the detached curiosity of someone dissecting evidence rather than meeting a man. "Mr. Carter?" she began, motioning to a chair. "Please sit." Malik obeyed, jaw tight. "I'm guessing this isn't about a thank you medal." Her eyes didn't flinch. "You interfered with an active security operation. Your actions led to diplomatic disruption and possible escalation between species. We're here to determine whether your intent was criminal, ideological, or emotional." He let out a dry laugh. "You mean human?" Vance's gaze sharpened. "You risked your life for a Thalari. Why?" "Because she was a child," he said simply. "Protocol requires citizens to await clearance before engaging extraterrestrial entities during emergencies." "And protocol would have let her die." Vance leaned forward, hands folded. "You understand the implications of what you did?" "The Thalari are not—" "They're not what?" Malik interrupted. "Not people." Silence fell, heavy and unblinking. Her jaw flexed. "You sound like my grandmother," she said finally. "She used to say the same thing during the Reconstruction Acts, that compassion should come before compliance." Malik met her gaze. "She sounds like someone I'd listen to." For the first time, something human cracked through her bureau composure, a flicker of respect, maybe even conflict. She rose from her seat and paced to the viewport, the city glittering far below. "The Thalari clan claims they've sworn loyalty to you. Is that true?" Malik's pulse quickened. "They did something I didn't fully understand. A ritual. They said it was a vow. Do you accept it?" He hesitated. "I didn't ask for it." "That's not what I asked." He stared down at his hands, remembering the way their voices had filled the workshop, the harmony, the weight of connection. "If standing by what's right means accepting it, then yeah, I guess I do." Vance turned back toward him, eyes unreadable. "Then understand this, Mr. Carter. The Bureau sees your act as a potential unification symbol, or a spark for rebellion. Which side of that you fall on depends on your next move." She approached, lowering her voice. "They'll expect you to renounce the Thalari bond publicly. If you refuse, they'll come for you." Malik rose slowly, the faint hum of defiance in his chest matching the city's pulse outside. "I'm done renouncing compassion to make powerful people comfortable." Vance studied him a long moment before speaking again. "You just made enemies you can't see." He smiled faintly. "Wouldn't be the first time." As he walked out of the Bureau's cold corridors, sunlight hit him like revelation. The air outside felt heavier, as if the city itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what he'd do next. When Malik returned to South Ridge, the sky was turning the color of copper. Neon banners flickered in the humid air, projecting government warnings about alien interference and unverified human alliances. The city had chosen its language carefully, words that sounded like caution, but smelled like fear. Inside the workshop, Lura-I stood by the window, watching light drizzle streak down the glass. Her reflection shimmered faintly, the colors inside her body shifting with every emotion. Malik paused by the doorway, feeling a strange quiet settle between them. "You went to the Bureau," she said softly, not turning around. "Yeah," he replied. "They asked a lot of questions. Mostly the kind that start with suspicion and end with threats." She faced him, her voice carrying that crystalline undertone he'd grown used to, like chimes in a summer wind. "Did they hurt you?" "Not yet." He forced a small smile. "Guess I still have some charm left." Lura-I studied him for a moment, her features unreadable but her light flickering with concern. "My clan sings your name in orbit," she said. "They say you are bound to us now." Malik sat on the edge of a workbench, rubbing his palms together. I don't really understand what that means. She walked closer, the faint glow of her steps illuminating the workshop floor. Among Thalari, to save one life is to touch a soul. You carry that song now, forever. Her words settled heavy in his chest. He thought of his grandmother again, how she'd once told him every act of kindness wrote its own gospel. We got a saying back home, he murmured. Each one, teach one. Guess yours is kind of the same. She tilted her head, curious. Teach one? Means when you learn something, you pass it on. You lift the next person up so they don't have to struggle the same way. Lura A's glow brightened, a pattern of pinks and blues swirling through her skin. Then your people sing too, just in different words. Malik chuckled, something like that. For a while they sat in companionable silence. The rain outside thickened, drumming on the roof like percussion. Malik found himself staring at the way her light shifted with the rhythm, an entire language built on color and motion. Show me, he said. Your way of talking, your real way. Lura-I hesitated. It may hurt your eyes. I've seen worse. She stepped back and closed her eyes. Slowly the light within her body began to pulse, soft at first, then layered, forming ripples of color that danced across the walls. Malik realized it wasn't random. It followed structure, rhythm, like jazz, improvised, but purposeful. He watched, transfixed. Each hue carried emotion. Joy burned gold, sorrow deepened to violet, gratitude shimmered silver. It wasn't just communication, it was poetry made visible. When she stopped, the room dimmed. Malik exhaled, almost breathless. That's beautiful. Her tone softened. It is how we tell stories. Every Thalari carries the history of their ancestors in light. When we are born, the colors of our lineage live within us. You saved that. Malik nodded slowly, understanding dawning like sunrise. Then your story's safe here. He tapped his chest. With me. Her light flared, not bright but warm, steady, alive. Then your heart is part of our home. For the first time since the chaos began, Malik felt peace. Not safety, not certainty, but connection. The kind that made fear small. But in that fragile stillness, a flicker of red warning light appeared on his wrist console. A surveillance drone had scanned the building's perimeter. Lura-I saw it too. Her glow dimmed instantly. They found us. Malik's jaw tightened. He rose from the bench, steady, calm. Then I guess it's time we stop hiding. Southridge had always been the city's forgotten artery, a tangle of cracked pavement, murals of ancestors, and food stalls perfumed with fried okra and pepper smoke. But that morning something had changed. People weren't whispering Malik's name anymore. They were speaking it loud, painted on walls in bright gold. The man who shielded. He walked through the narrow streets with his hood pulled low. Lura-I stayed close. Her glow dimmed to a faint amber that blended with the warm streetlights. Despite the tension buzzing in the air, the community's rhythm pulsed on. Music leaking from open windows, laughter that sounded defiant, and the scent of home still clinging to every corner. Everyone's watching, Malik murmured. Lura-A tilted her head. They fear you? He shook his head. Not fear. Curiosity. Maybe hope. Across the street, old Miss Geraldine waved him over. She ran the soul food stand that had fed half the neighborhood for decades. Boy, you out here walking like you ain't got the whole bureau sniffing your trail, she scolded, handing him a paper cup of steaming tea. You stirred up something big. Malik smiled faintly. Wouldn't be the first time this street stirred change. Her gaze softened. You sound like your grandma, rest her soul. She'd be proud. But watch yourself. The kind of courage you carry draws both angels and trouble. He thanked her, slipping a credit chit into her jar. When they walked away, Lura-I whispered, She speaks with the same warmth as your music. That's called love, Malik said quietly. It's how our people survived when the world forgot us. As they turned a corner, a familiar voice called out, Jamal, the student who'd come to warn him days ago. He was standing near a row of charging drones, flanked by a few of Malik's workshop kids. "Mr. Carter, we've been fixing the comnets. Got something to show you." Inside a dim tech shop, the group crowded around an old terminal, humming with patchwork code. Jamal grinned. "We built a firewall, piggybacked it off the city grid, keeps Bureau trackers blind around South Ridge." Malik blinked, half proud, half alarmed. "You did this yourselves?" "Learned from the best," Jamal said, tapping the side of his temple. "You told us tech is just another language for freedom." Malik's chest tightened. He'd taught these kids to build drones for art and engineering, not rebellion, but seeing their determination, he couldn't suppress the pride blooming behind the worry. Lura stood quietly watching the young humans work. "Your youth protect you," she said. Malik looked at her. "No, they protect us." "That's the difference." Outside, the distant buzz of corporate security drones began to echo. The kids froze. Malik's instincts flared. He stepped toward the doorway, scanning the skyline. The Bureau's mechanical enforcers patrolled slowly, spotlights sweeping across rooftops. "They're searching for me," Malik said under his breath. "Or for you." "Then they'll find neither," Jamal replied, tapping a key. Instantly, the holographic map around them blinked, a digital ghost field distorting their coordinates. The drones passed overhead without pause, fooled by the distortion. Lura-A's eyes shimmered. "Your young are clever." "Clever gets you noticed," Malik said grimly, "and noticed gets you targeted." The group fell silent. For a few minutes, the only sound was the soft hum of servers and the rain outside. Then one of the younger girls, Maya, spoke. "Mr. Carter, people talking. They say if you stand with that alien, maybe we all should." Malik looked at her, so small, yet speaking with the same fire he'd once seen in Amara's eyes. "Standing with someone don't mean fighting their war," he said. "It means refusing to let fear choose your side." Outside, thunder rolled. The rain began to fall harder, washing streaks of gold paint down the murals, but the words, "the man who shielded," remained. As lightning flashed across the skyline, Malik's reflection merged with the painted letters. For the first time, he felt what his grandmother must have meant when she said, "Some names are given by history, others you earn." The rain didn't stop for 2 days. South Ridge seemed to breathe beneath it, a neighborhood suspended between fear and defiance. Malik barely slept, pacing his workshop as the hum of the hacked grid flickered above. Every time thunder rolled, his mind replayed the Bureau's warning: renounce the Thalari bond or face consequences. Lura-A sat near the window, her glow faint, almost translucent. "You don't rest," she said softly. "Can't afford to," Malik muttered, adjusting a data pad filled with encryption logs. "They're getting closer. Every time Jamal updates the firewall, new trackers pop up somewhere else. Somebody's feeding them coordinates." She tilted her head. "A betrayal?" He didn't answer right away. The word tasted bitter, familiar. "Yeah," he said finally. "Someone's selling us out." The workshop door creaked open, and Amara stepped in, coat dripping from the storm. "You need to see this," she said, voice clipped. She tossed a holotab onto the table. Their projection flared to life, footage from a Bureau press briefing. Commander Rhodes stood before a sea of cameras, his expression cold, precise. "Malik Carter," Rhodes announced, "has been identified as a direct associate of Thalari insurgents responsible for the attack in Freedom Square. Evidence confirms he is harboring an unregistered alien and aiding a hostile clan." Lura-A's light dimmed to gray. Malik froze. "They're framing me," he whispered. Amara crossed her arms. "No, they're burying you. And they've got help from inside South Ridge. Somebody's leaking your moves." The room seemed to shrink. Malik's pulse thudded like machinery. "Who?" She hesitated. "Jamal's been seen near the Bureau checkpoints. Someone said he handed over comm data." Malik's first reaction was disbelief. "No, that kid wouldn't." Amara cut him off. "I'm not saying he meant to. The Bureau knows how to twist people, but you need to be smart, Malik. They'll use every name you trust." He turned away, gripping the edge of the workbench until his knuckles ached. The rain outside hammered harder, filling the silence. Lura-A's voice trembled. "If your people turn against you, will you still protect me?" He faced her slowly, eyes tired but steady. "It's not about sides, Lura-A. It's about right and wrong. That hasn't changed." Amara placed a hand on his shoulder. "They're planning a raid, Malik. Maybe tonight. You need to move her somewhere safe." "Where?" he asked. She hesitated, then pulled a small device from her pocket, a silver data shard. "There's an old maintenance tunnel under the Ridge tramway, not on the Bureau maps. Upload this and it'll open the hatch." Malik took it. "You're risking your career," Amara smirked. Wouldn't be the first time a Carter stood up to bad law. The siblings locked eyes, a silent promise passing between them. Then she was gone, swallowed by the rain. Lura-A rose, her glow pulsing faintly with worry. "You doubt your friend," she said. He sighed. "I doubt everyone right now." Hours later, when the city lights dimmed into curfew mode, Malik and Lura-A prepared to leave. He packed the essentials, power cells, rations, a repair kit. As he sealed the bag, a faint noise cracked through the air, static from the comms channel. A voice whispered, "Malik, it's Jamal. They know, man. They're coming. I'm sorry." The transmission cut out. Malik froze. His stomach turned cold. "He called from a bureau frequency," he murmured. The hum of drones filled the distance, low and steady. He could already see faint red glows through the rain. Lura-A's light brightened, sensing his fear. "They found us?" He nodded, pulse quickening. "Yeah, we've been betrayed." Outside, thunder cracked, masking the whir of engines drawing near. Malik grabbed her hand, guiding her toward the back exit. "We move now." But as they stepped into the storm, a single thought burned through the noise. Betrayal wasn't always about malice. Sometimes it was about desperation. And in Neo-Atlanta, desperation was the city's oldest language. The Bureau's raid never reached the workshop. By the time drones tore through the door, Malik and Lura-A were already gone, swallowed by the storm. They followed Amara's coordinates through the flooded alleys until the city opened into the old tramway tunnels, relics from the pre-contact era, where graffiti told the history of rebellion in color and dust. They spent the night there, listening to the hum of distant engines above. When morning broke, Malik emerged into a city transformed. The feeds had shifted again. Now the narrative spoke of alien protests, human collaborators, and civil unrest. Every image was designed to divide. But South Ridge didn't break. Instead, it burned brighter. By noon, hundreds of people filled the streets, some carrying holographic banners that read, "We stand with the shield," others projecting fractal lights shaped like Thalari sigils. Music pulsed from rooftops, a blend of gospel chords and alien harmonics that resonated deep in the bones. Malik had seen war rallies before, but this was different. It wasn't rage, it was resolve. He stood among them, hood pulled low, heart pounding. Beside him, Lura-A's glow reflected across faces both human and alien. For the first time, she didn't hide her light. "They sing for you," she whispered. "No," Malik said quietly. "They sing for all of us." From the steps of an old church turned community hub, Amara addressed the crowd. Her voice carried through the humid air, clear and fierce. "They tell us to fear what's different, but our ancestors built strength from difference. We were told once that freedom was dangerous, and we made it sacred. Now they say compassion is weakness. I say compassion is revolution." The crowd roared, a wave of sound rising like thunder. Malik felt the vibration under his skin, a collective heartbeat. Lura-A stepped forward, her body shimmering. Without words, she lifted her hand toward the sky, and her glow began to expand, weaving through the smoke and drizzle like living light. The Thalari call this the harmonic thread, a song made visible. Malik had only glimpsed it once before, but now he saw its power. The light spread across the square, touching the banners, the walls, the people. Then something miraculous happened. Humans joined in, their voices blending with the alien frequency, forming chords that neither species could create alone. It wasn't just sound, It was unity. A march began, slow at first, then gathering force, feet splashing through puddles, drums echoing from alleys, songs rising from rooftops. Malik walked with them, every step measured, every breath heavy with meaning. The march wound through Southridge, past murals of civil rights heroes, past old churches where choirs once sang freedom into the bones of those who'd forgotten how to dream. A little girl reached out to touch Lura-A's hand, and for a moment her palm glowed the same color. The child gasped, eyes wide with wonder. "It's warm," she said. Lura-A smiled, her voice soft. "It remembers kindness." Malik swallowed hard. He looked around. Black, brown, human, Thalari, all moving as one, their differences blending into something radiant. He'd seen soldiers march into fire, but never like this. This wasn't a fight for survival. It was a declaration of belonging, but not everyone cheered. Above the rooftops, Bureau drones hovered, recording every step. Malik spotted the red flash of authorization codes, the mark of incoming enforcement. He knew what would come next: tear gas, curfews, silence. Still, no one stopped marching. Amara caught his eye through the crowd and mouthed, "Keep going." The chants grew louder, echoing through the steel canyons of Neo-Atlanta. "We shield, we rise, we shine." Lura-A turned to Malik, her light flickering gold. "Is this what your people call faith?" He nodded, a tear lost in the rain. "Yeah, faith looks like this." Far off, the low whine of riot drones began to build. Malik's muscles tensed. The march wasn't over. It was only beginning. The first explosion cracked the rhythm of the march. It wasn't fire at first, just sound, a deep concussion rolling down from the northern ridge. The music faltered. Voices broke. Then the sky lit up orange above the old Auburn district, and the air turned sharp with the smell of burning circuitry. Malik's heart clenched. "They're deploying riot drones," he said. The metallic hum grew louder by the second, echoing between glass towers like a swarm. Amara's voice crackled through a stolen comlink. "Malik, get them off the main avenue." "The Bureau's triggering dispersal codes. You've got minutes before lockdown." He grabbed Lura-A's arm, guiding her through the mass of people as the crowd shifted from song to panic. Still, even in chaos, the chorus didn't fully die. It throbbed beneath the fear, stubborn as hope. Smoke drifted low over Auburn Avenue, once the heart of old Atlanta's freedom marches, now buried beneath chrome and neon. Malik felt the ghosts of that history pressing on his chest. He'd studied the photos as a boy, their raised hands, their unbroken stares. He wondered what they would think of this day, humanity marching again for compassion instead of color, light instead of skin. Lura-A coughed, her glow flickering in the haze. "Why attack your own?" she asked. "Because truth scares power," Malik said. "Always has." He scanned the rooftops. The drones were descending, sleek, black, mechanical locusts with red scanning eyes. He knew their programming. He'd helped design earlier models years ago. They'd start with crowd control pulses, then move to kinetic shockwaves. Non-lethal on paper, brutal in practice. "Back streets," he shouted. "Follow me." The group around him obeyed instinctively. His calm voice cut through panic like an anchor. Lura-A stayed close, clutching the pendant her clan had given her. Malik's mind raced. Every turn of the street was mapped in muscle memory from years of running deliveries for the community. He led them through a narrow corridor lined with flickering murals, faces of leaders who dreamed of equality long before aliens ever came. A blast shook the ground behind them. The crowd stumbled. Malik turned, activating his old shield device. The orange dome flared, catching a pulse round before it hit a mother holding her child. The impact burned his wrist, but he didn't stop. "Keep moving!" Someone shouted his name from the smoke, Jamal. The boy stumbled toward him, clutching a broken transmitter. "They're cutting the network, Mr. Carter. I tried to block it, but—" "It's okay," Malik said, gripping his shoulder. "You did enough. Get to the church with the others." The boy hesitated, but— "Go!" Malik barked. Jamal ran. Malik turned back to the encroaching red lights. He could feel the heat of the drone's plasma cores charging. Lura-Ai stepped beside him. "You shield again," she said. "It's what I do." Her eyes glowed fiercely. "Then I will shield too." Before he could stop her, she extended her arms. A pulse of harmonic energy rippled from her body, weaving through the smoke like threads of light. The drone's targeting sensors flickered. Some wavered mid-air, confused by the frequency. Malik stared in awe as the street filled with a kaleidoscope of color, gold, violet, and deep blue, humming in unison with the human voices that had not stopped singing. "Lura-Ai," he called over the din. "You'll burn yourself out." Her reply was calm, steady. "Better to burn for peace than fade for fear." For a moment the city itself seemed to hold its breath. The drones hesitated, as if caught between command and compassion. Then a loud metallic voice boomed through the air. "All unauthorized gatherings, disperse immediately." Malik tightened his grip on the shield. "They're not listening," he muttered. Amara's voice cut through the calm again. "Malik, you've got one route left. Freedom Tunnel under Auburn. Get them there before the next strike." He glanced toward the rising smoke and the crowd behind him, faces shining with faith despite fear. "Understood." He took Lura-Ai's hand, her palm hot with light, and began leading the people toward the tunnel. Above them, the orange haze glowed brighter, reflecting off glass towers like a false sunrise. And as the first streaks of fire rained down on Auburn, Malik Carter's voice rose above the chaos, not a cry, but a command carried by conviction. "Hold the line." The tunnel under Auburn was a forgotten artery, its air thick with the scent of rust and ancient stone. Malik led the crowd through it, the dim glow of emergency lights casting long shadows across their faces. The only sound was the rush of their breathing and the echo of their footsteps. Every so often, a distant rumble would shake the walls, reminding them that the city above was no longer the place they'd once known. The sky was being torn apart by fire and fear, and here, in the underground, they were running out of time. Lura-Ai walked beside Malik, her glow barely visible in the dark. Her eyes scanned the tunnel walls as though they held the answers to questions that had yet to be asked. Malik could feel her discomfort. Her connection to the city was fractured. The energy she had once channeled now more like a flickering ember than a fire. "You don't have to keep up with us," he said quietly, glancing over at her. "We'll find a way for you to—" "I will not hide," she interrupted, her voice firm. "This is not my fight alone. I have chosen to stand." He nodded, though his chest tightened. The weight of her words was heavy, a promise of shared struggle, and he knew the path ahead would be even more dangerous with every step. They reached a junction where the tunnel split into multiple passages. At the end of one, he saw Amara waiting with a group of survivors, huddled against the walls, eyes wide with worry. The streetlights flickered above, casting a cold metallic hue on the crowd. "Malik," Amara said as he approached. Her voice was strained but steady. "They're not stopping. The Bureau's already closing in. They've got armored units on the way, and the drones are setting up a perimeter around the main streets. If we don't act now, we'll be boxed in." Malik's pulse quickened. The tunnel felt too small suddenly, as though the walls were closing in. "We need to move these people, now." Amara shook her head. "The way's blocked. They've reinforced the exits. They're not just here to contain the march. They're after everyone who's with you." Lura-Ai stepped forward, her eyes locking with Malik's. "We can still move. My people can shield us." Malik glanced at her, then back at Amara. "How?" "We don't have to fight them," Lura-Ai said. "We just need to create a path." She closed her eyes, her body humming with energy, but this time the sound was different. It was less chaotic, more focused, as if she was drawing from the core of the city itself. The air around her shimmered, and the shadows deepened as if the tunnel itself was shifting. Malik's breath caught. He could feel the energy in the air, a rising tension that wasn't entirely alien, but not entirely human either. Lura-Ai raised her hand, and a wave of light pulsed through the walls of the tunnel. It was like watching a storm move in slow motion, forceful, beautiful, and terrifying. The ground beneath them trembled as her harmonic pulse pushed outward, forcing open the path that had been blocked by the Bureau's forces. But then came the crackle of a comlink, low and urgent. "Malik!" Amara's voice, distorted by static. "They're coming. They've detected the energy shift. You've only got seconds before they—" The sound of the comlink cut out. The air shifted again, this time colder, sharper. The ground rumbled beneath them, and Malik knew the drones were closing in faster than they could move. "We need to go, now!" But Lura-A's focus was unwavering. Her light flared once more, cutting through the darkness like a blade. She had tapped into something deeper, something beyond the simple frequency she had used before. Malik could see the strain on her face. The effort was costing her more than she was willing to admit. "We can't stay here," he said, stepping closer. "We need to move, Lura-A. Don't let them use you up." She didn't answer. Instead, her eyes fluttered shut again, and a last pulse of energy surged from her, scattering sparks against the stone walls. For a moment, the entire tunnel seemed to breathe with her. Then, as quickly as it had started, the light flickered and died. The sound of rushing footsteps grew louder. "Malik, we move now!" Amara shouted, pulling him by the arm. Malik snapped back to reality. He grabbed Lura-A's hand, feeling the faint warmth still lingering from her pulse. The tunnel was their only escape. They pushed forward. Above them, the sound of drones grew louder. The countdown had already begun. The tunnel seemed to stretch on forever, a dark artery of stone and steel under the weight of the city above. Every step Malik took felt heavier, his breath quicker, as the sounds of the drones grew louder. The air was thick with tension, crackling with fear and desperation. But in the midst of it all, there was something else. The spark of something unspoken, a bond formed under fire. Lura-A stumbled beside him, her hand still gripping his, the faint glow of her skin flickering like a dying star. She was clearly pushing herself to the limit, each step leaving a trace of light that barely illuminated the dark passages ahead. Malik could feel the exhaustion radiating from her, but she didn't falter. She didn't give up. "We're almost there," he said, his voice strained, not knowing if it was more for his own comfort than hers. "Just a little longer." Lura-A nodded, but he could see the strain in her eyes, the effort it took to keep going. He could feel the weight of the world pressing in on them both, but she wasn't backing down. Not now, not when they were so close. A soft whisper echoed through the tunnel. "You have to believe," Lura-A said, her voice low but clear. "Trust in what we've built. Trust in each other." Malik's heart skipped a beat. He glanced at her, his grip tightening around her hand. "I trust you," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "But I don't know if I can trust anyone else anymore." Lura-A stopped for a moment, her eyes meeting his, her glow dim but still bright with conviction. "Trust is not just about others," she said. "It's about trusting yourself, trusting the truth you carry." Malik swallowed hard. He had always believed that what mattered most was what he could do, how he could fight. But in that moment he realized she was right. Trust wasn't just about what he could do for others. It was about believing in the path they were walking, together. The soft rumble of the drones above reminded them that time was running out. Malik pulled Lura-A closer, his resolve hardening. "Let's move." They reached the end of the tunnel and emerged into the outskirts of Freedom Square. The air was different here, thicker with tension but also with something else, a sense of purpose. The streets were lined with people, some human, some Thalari, all standing together, their eyes watching the horizon. They knew the danger was closing in, but they were waiting for something to shift. "Malik!" a voice called out from the crowd. He turned, his heart racing as he saw Amara pushing through the people, a determined look on her face. "You made it," she said, her voice tight but relieved. "We're not safe yet," Malik replied, scanning the streets, the sound of the drones still echoing in his ears. "We need to move fast. They won't stop until they've got us all." Amara nodded, her eyes hardening with resolve. "We're not running anymore. It's time to stand." She motioned for them to follow, and they moved through the crowd, the energy shifting as they walked. It wasn't just fear in the air now. It was something stronger, a collective will, a shared desire for change. The people weren't waiting to be saved. They were ready to fight for what was right. Malik could feel the spark of trust that Lura-A had spoken of, but it wasn't just in her. It was in everyone around him. They had all chosen to stand together. And in that moment, something changed inside Malik. He had always carried the weight of the world on his shoulders, believing that he alone could make a difference. But as he walked through the crowd with Lura-A by his side, he realized that the strength he had been searching for wasn't just in his own hands. It was in the hands of those who had chosen to stand with him. The drones were getting closer, their shadows creeping across the streets. But Malik didn't flinch. He wasn't alone anymore. The spark of trust had ignited something in him, something powerful, something that could never be put out. And no matter what came next, Malik knew he would stand with them. The sun had barely risen over Neo Atlanta when the first representatives from both the human and Thalari factions arrived at the ancient amphitheater. The city was quiet for the first time in days. The sounds of battle had faded into a heavy silence, but the tension in the air was palpable, thick like fog. The crowd gathered outside the amphitheater, drawn by the promise of peace, a fragile hope that somehow, against all odds, something might finally change. Malik stood at the edge of the steps, his eyes scanning the scene. He was no diplomat, no politician. He was just a man who had shielded a young alien girl, a man who had walked into a fire he didn't understand, and come out with a bond he couldn't ignore. But today, he found himself in the center of something much larger than himself. Lura-A stood beside him, her presence a quiet strength. Her skin shimmered in the early light, the colors dancing with the morning's first rays. She was no longer hiding her light, no longer retreating into the shadows. She was here, standing tall, just as the rest of them were. A soft murmur rippled through the crowd as a procession of officials from the Bureau approached. They moved with a sense of purpose, but also an air of uncertainty. The Bureau had always seen control as its weapon, and now, for the first time, it felt like they were walking into an arena where the rules were no longer theirs to set. Malik caught sight of Commander Rhodes among the group, his stern face etched with lines of both weariness and resolve. Their eyes met for a moment, and Malik could see the flicker of doubt behind the man's hardened exterior. It was a subtle shift, but it was enough to confirm that something had changed. When the final officials entered the amphitheater, a heavy silence fell over the crowd. Amara stepped up beside Malik, her face determined. "This is it," she said quietly. "We're either going to change everything or nothing." Malik nodded, his hands clenched at his sides. "I never thought I'd be here, Amara. Standing on the edge of something this big. I'm not sure we're ready for this." "You don't need to be ready," she replied. "You just need to be yourself." Before he could respond, the official proceedings began. The leaders from both the Thalari and human factions took their places at the center of the stage. A representative from the Thalari, tall and regal, raised her hand, signaling for the crowd to quiet. "My people have witnessed the bravery and compassion shown by Malik Carter," she began, her voice rich and resonant, echoing through the amphitheater. "His actions have saved lives, not only of my own kin but of humanity itself. Today we stand as allies, bound by more than treaties. We are bound by the trust we have forged in the fires of fear." The crowd was silent, hanging on every word. Malik could feel the weight of her gaze on him as she continued. "We vow, in front of you all, to stand by the humans who have chosen peace and to protect the ones who fight for it." A wave of murmurs swept through the crowd, the hope of a new beginning settling over them like a blanket. Then it was the Bureau's turn. Commander Rhodes stepped forward, his face unreadable. He took a moment before speaking, his voice rough. "We have watched Malik Carter's actions with suspicion, but we cannot ignore the results. He has shown the strength of character that is the foundation of humanity itself. Today I stand here not to bring him to justice, but to acknowledge that his fight was never about destruction. It was about survival, for all of us." A ripple of disbelief spread through the crowd. Some of them had never expected the Bureau to speak in terms of unity, much less offer an acknowledgement of Malik's actions. But here they were, standing at the precipice of something far greater than any of them had imagined. The Thalari representative turned to Malik then, extending her hand. "Will you, Malik Carter, accept the dawn of a new era, where humanity and the Thalari stand together, as equals bound by the trust we've built?" The air seemed to hold its breath as Malik stepped forward. His heart thundered in his chest, but when he reached out and clasped her hand, the weight that had been crushing him for so long lifted. "I accept," Malik said, his voice steady, "and I will protect this trust with everything I have." The crowd erupted in applause. It wasn't just for him, but for everyone who had stood beside him, for everyone who had believed in something bigger than fear. And as the sun broke through the clouds, spilling golden light across the amphitheater, Malik knew that this was just the beginning. The fight wasn't over, but today they had won something far more important. They had won the future. The city was quieter now, the chaos of the last few days settling into an uneasy peace. The sounds of drones and sirens had become a distant memory, replaced by the soft hum of Neo Atlanta's daily rhythm. But for Malik, nothing would ever be the same. The fragile bond between humanity and the Thalari had been sealed, and with it, his role had shifted. He wasn't just a protector anymore. He was part of something larger than he could have imagined. Lura-A had insisted on walking with him through the streets, her presence more solid now, her light glowing brighter than before. She was still adjusting to the weight of what had happened, but there was a quiet strength in the way she held herself. The city no longer felt like a place of division, but of potential. There was still so much to be done, but for the first time Malik saw a path forward that didn't end in destruction. They passed by a small park where children, both human and Thalari, played together. The sight filled Malik with a strange sense of peace, knowing that this new world could work. It would work, if they all just kept believing. Lura-A slowed her step, and Malik followed her gaze. At the heart of the park, a circle of Thalari and humans had gathered, their voices blending in a low hum, the soft melodic tones of the Thalari mingling with the rhythmic beats of human drums. The two species were communicating in ways no one had thought possible just weeks before. "This is a beginning," Malik said quietly, turning toward her. "A real one?" "Yes," Lura-A replied, her tone almost reverent. "A beginning that we will walk together." Malik smiled, but the weight of the future still pressed on him. He didn't know what would come next, but one thing was clear. It was a world worth fighting for. As they continued walking, they approached the main square, where a group of Thalari had set up a pavilion. At its center stood an intricately woven crystal sculpture, a representation of their home planet, delicate and beautiful, but strong in its design. A crowd of people stood around it, murmuring in awe at the work of art. Lura-A paused, her eyes reflecting the sculpture's light. "It is our way of saying thank you," she said, her voice soft. Malik stopped, his gaze drifting to the crystal. "For what?" he asked, genuinely curious. "For the courage to stand with us," she answered, "to protect us, not because we are alien, but because we are all part of the same struggle. You, Malik Carter, have given us more than your shield. You have given us hope." Before he could respond, a figure stepped forward from the crowd, an elder Thalari, tall and regal, her skin shimmering with the colors of a sunset. She approached Malik and extended her hand, her expression filled with respect. "Malik Carter," she said, her voice carrying through the air. "Your actions have not only saved my people, but have united us in a way we never thought possible. You are no longer just a protector. You are one of us." The elder handed him a small, delicate pendant. It was made of the same crystal from the sculpture, intricately carved into a shape that mirrored the unity between the two species. It glowed softly in Malik's hand, warm and alive. "This," she continued, "is a symbol of our bond. Wear it as a reminder that you will always be part of the clan of Dawn." Malik's throat tightened. He hadn't expected this, didn't know how to feel about it. It was more than just a gift. It was a promise. He looked at Lura-A, who stood beside him, her eyes shining with pride. "You honor me," Malik said, his voice thick with emotion. I I don't know if I deserve this. You do, the elder replied, her voice gentle. You've earned it, and now you carry it with you. For the future we will build together. Malik stood there for a moment, the weight of the pendant heavy in his palm. The city around him felt different, alive with possibility. As the sun set behind the skyline, he realized that this moment wasn't just about the peace they had secured. It was about the promise they had made to each other, to everyone who had fought for a better world. With the pendant resting in his hand, Malik turned to Lura-e, who gave him a small, knowing smile. "This is just the beginning," she said. Malik nodded. "Yeah. But it's a beginning worth fighting for." And as the light from the sunset bathed them in its glow, Malik knew that this was the start of something truly remarkable. The first rays of sunlight stretched across Neo-Atlanta, like fingers brushing open the eyelids of a city reborn. The air was still, almost reverent, as if the sky itself was pausing to witness what had survived. Buildings shimmered under the dawn's gold, casting soft reflections onto the wet streets below. For once there were no sirens, no drones, only quiet. Malik stood on the rooftop of the Southridge Community Center, the same place where this had all started, just a man, a prototype shield, and an instinct to protect. Now everything had changed, and somehow, nothing had. The pendant from the Thalari hung against his chest, warm with a gentle hum. It pulsed not just with alien memory, but with something deeper, connection, shared struggle, the echo of voices that had chosen peace over power. Behind him, the sound of slow footsteps approached. Amara joined him at the edge, coffee in one hand, her other stuffed in her jacket pocket. "Didn't think you'd sleep," she said, sipping slowly. "I didn't," Malik replied, his voice calm. "Didn't want to miss this." They watched the sun creep higher, bathing the city in light. Down below, people stirred, Thalari and human, elders and children, activists and former skeptics, emerging from shelters, homes, gathering in the squares not to protest or hide, but simply to be. Together. "You realize you started something they can't undo, right?" Amara asked. "They'll try, of course. Bureau's already rewriting the narrative, softening your image, turning you into a brand they can market." Malik chuckled. "Let 'em try. Truth don't need permission to stand up." Amara smiled, pride flickering in her eyes. "Grandma would have said that exact same thing. Probably with more fire. She also would have whooped me for jumping into all this without telling her first," Malik added. They both laughed, the kind of laughter that comes not from joy, but from relief, shared survival, quiet endurance. Below, the rebuilt plaza shimmered. The crystal sculpture gifted by the Thalari remained at its center, untouched despite the chaos. Its light shifted gently with the sunrise, casting fractured patterns across the square, symbols of two cultures no longer divided by fear. Malik turned as Lura-e stepped onto the rooftop, her presence quiet but full. Her skin reflected the sunrise, her patterns calm, steady. She had grown since that day in the square, more confident, more grounded, but she had never lost her softness. "I wanted to see it," she said, stepping beside him, "the day when it didn't feel like we were running." "This is that day," Malik answered without hesitation. She reached up and gently touched the pendant on his chest. "The stories we told in light, they always spoke of a time when two worlds would become one. We didn't believe them." "Not until now." "You don't always need belief to begin something," Malik said. "Sometimes you just need to stand up when it counts." They stood in silence for a long moment. Then Lura-e turned toward him, her glow faint but steady. "What comes next?" Malik exhaled, letting the breeze catch his words. "We build. We teach. We make sure this trust doesn't fade. Not here. Not ever." Behind them, a group of students from the workshop began setting up a tech station on the roof. Broadcast nodes, signal relays, solar panels, the new generation stepping in. Malik didn't need to guide them anymore. They knew what they were doing. That was the point. He looked out over Neo-Atlanta, alive with the pulse of possibility. This wasn't the end of a fight. It was the beginning of something new, something worth protecting. He turned back to the camera drone hovering nearby, its light blinking softly. If Malik's story meant something to you, his voice said, calm and steady, subscribe for more human stories that matter. Stories where unity wins, where courage leads, and where compassion is never weakness, it's power. He stepped away from the edge, the sunrise warm on his back. And don't miss the next video. We're just getting started.